Good morning, everybody. John Chester, Operations for California Incident Management Team 5. Today's date, May 30th, 2022. We'll give you an overall operational update for the Kef Canyon Hermit Peak fires here. So we'll just starting back up into the Big Pine subdivision area. Work is continuing up there as the fire is back down behind the structures. In that area, we still have crews, engines, and management folks up in there monitoring, working, providing the structure protection needed to ensure those structures remain safe as that fire consumes and begins to die out and lessen out from the control lines that we've put in place in that area. Coming around to the east, out to the fire's edge and coming down Division Alpha Bravo, continuing to answer calls for service when those come in to our communication center or info and through 911 calls that people place. As we progress down through Las Vegas and then across the southern portion of the fire, got a lot of questions concerning the red dots that are down in here. Last night for the night shift when those folks were out, we did send people in there to investigate that. We have had no calls for service other than the questions in the chat for here, but nothing in there was founded. And likely when we see some of these types of dots showing up on our infrared in the tools that we use to gather that, down here as well as the lower Rosciata areas and upper or Lone Pine Mesa areas. There's a number of factors that could produce that, and we know that those areas potentially have been repopulated and folks are back in there. And if you have wood burning stoves and you're using that to heat your house at night, if that's what goes on, those could certainly reflect that. Generators because of power loss, those sorts of equipments, and then just the people being back in can produce oftentimes those heat signatures that we start seeing as they pop up in places where they've been historically not. And we take the time and the effort to go out and research and look for those to make sure that it is not areas that have reignited from the fire. So we did send some folks back into here. Again, unfounded. There was nothing in there. Our folks talked with the folks that were in there. No calls for service and nothing that anybody's reported on the ground out there. As we come around into the lower Colonias, upper Colonias, Burdias Peak areas, the good work is continuing in there. The lines have been put into place. We are strengthening those lines by performing the mop-up actions and operations where we start from the fire's edge and we work interior in the fire, removing the sources of heat, burning vegetation logs and stuff that is still consuming and burning down. Again, that is a very time-consuming, tedious, labor-intensive project, and so it takes time. And typically, we like to get a good solid buffer along those edges before we turn that line into the black line, like you see over here in these areas. Coming around, the hand line and the control lines that we were putting in from kind of the corner here down into Bull Creek up into the Skyline Trail. That work has been completed as far as the hand line construction and the control feature that we have put in there. And the work continues to strengthen and make the control lines stronger. And then as we continue to move up into the Spring Mountain, Bear Creek areas, beyond just north of Elk Mountain, that area is in the wilderness. That fire continues to grow at a moderated pace in there as it backs down into some of those canyons and consumes the fuels that are in there. You will continue to see that growth in there. And one of the main issues, and people may wonder why we're not right on the fire's edge like we've been in some of these other areas, but that area in there is very steep, nasty, rugged terrain. The fuel loadings in there are very, very intense, and it just isn't a safe place to put firefighters. And so that's why we've backed off to some of these other control features that we've established and allowing that fire to back to those in a controlled manner where when it gets to our control lines, they will be prepped they will be ready to defend in the event that the fire actually gets to those. Moving up into the Hamilton Mesa, where that leaves the Iron Gate campground and works up the Iron Mesa, or the Hamilton Mesa, to the divide. The work is continuing in that area. With crews, we have 100+ personnel that are working up in there, looking for advantageous places to place those control lines where we reduce the we use the topography and the fuel type to our advantage there. So the breaks where it goes from the heavy down and dead to the more open meadow areas, and it's less labor intensive, and we can get those control lines in quicker in a place where when the fire, or if the fire got to them, it would be easier for us to be able to hold it on those control lines. In addition to that, looking for alternate control lines, so backups as we go. So we have a plan in place that covers the primary and then contingency in the event things occur. So a lot of good work is still going on, and will continue to go on. So that is the overall operational update for that. Coming out into the Pecos Canyon corridor over there, we know that there's still a lot of residents who have been displaced by this incident. We're working diligently and in pretty consistent communications daily with the local sheriff to come up with a plan that we can start getting some of these things repopulated. And confident that over the next few days you will start seeing some of these evacuation plans that are in the go, probably starting to tear down into the set and potentially the ready, as all this good work is continuing and the strong efforts of the firefighters out there is starting to really reflect in the fire behavior and what we got going on right on the fire's edge there. So with that, we still do have critical fire weather. We continue to have high winds and low relative humidities. Those did come up a little bit last night, aided us in some of our control efforts, but we still have, for today, red flag type weather conditions, high winds with gusts up to 50 miles per hour, low RHs, and moderate temperatures for the day. So continue to have conditions that will foster and allow for fire growth and development. But they're, like, the wind conditions currently are favorable, keeps pushing the fire back onto itself and allows it to back at a more controlled pace away from the edge. Over the next few days, and you'll hear this maybe in a weather briefing later, but we do have a little bit of change in weather coming, potentially some moisture and a little wind component change, dropping the winds, but maybe change of direction. So we'll keep that in mind, certainly as we start to assess whether or not or how we can get folks back into their residences over here. And that is a primary focus, not only for the firefighters, but for the law enforcement, to be able to get people back into their residence over here in the upper, lower Posada and the Pecos areas, as the fire we gain containment and control over this southwest corner over here. So we understand that that's a high priority for you folks as well, and we're doing everything we can to get folks back into those areas. Please continue to put comments in the chat, ask the questions that you guys would like answers to. We can help those out as best we can as we get that information, and we're working on that. Additionally, when you see something that you feel needs investigating or looked at, smokes, or you see something along the roads that you're driving along and you see something interior of the burn, continue to put those calls into our information center. They will pass those along to our communications, and that will get out to the folks on the ground who can to go investigate those and ensure that we are keeping our lines secure and held. The last thing that I know is important, not the last thing, but an additional thing that I know that is super important for everybody here as we get into the change, or we start coming into the change of seasons with the monsoons and maybe potentially the wetter weather as things go further into the month of June and into July, is we are starting repair. And we've started that a few days ago. And so with repair, Suppression repair, what we're doing is we're looking at trying to undo or fix some of the damage that has occurred by our individuals on the ground, personnel-wise, with hand tools, who have scraped away that top layer of soil that kind of holds moisture and prevents erosion and things of that nature, the heavy equipment. So we have started that over in the Division Alpha Bravo area. It's called a repair group, and those folks are starting to assess and begin trying to restore that stuff to a state where it will prevent or control the erosion and any damages that may come from the wetting rains that are forecasted out in the distant future there. So again, appreciate all the comments that you guys are sending in, and continue to do that. Continue to make the calls when there's something you see that you feel needs to be looked at. We appreciate those, and it gives us an opportunity to go out, meet with the people in the public that are there, and give them the reassurance that we're doing everything we can to continue to protect their communities and the infrastructure that is out there. So again, thank you. Have a good day.